Good afternoon. We're going to let a few of you guys in. Give it just a few more minutes as people come in from their lunch hour, either before or after. We'll kick off our panel discussion today. Still seeing some folks trickle in, so just 1 minute and we'll kick off within 30 seconds. Excellent. We'll begin. So I want to thank you guys for taking this opportunity to join myself, Scott Foster, Megan Focal, as well as Bruce Mattis, who unfortunately last minute is unable to attend due to weather impacting his region due to the hurricane today. But what I'd like to do is take this opportunity to do some brief introductions of the subject matter experts joined today for our panel discussion. Now, all of you have been brought here today and are eager to learn more about the challenges in healthcare recruiting and how subject matter experts and leaders across other organizations throughout the United States are addressing these challenges and how they are bringing solutions to their organization. So that's really the goal of today, is to engage and to share with you different ideas. I'll start with introductions. My name is Jennifer Henley. I serve as COO of NAS Recruitment Innovation. We are a full-service leading recruitment marketing agency to help support both employment branding, recruitment marketing strategies, and leveraging technology. I've been with the agency a little over 20 years, and I'm super proud to say that I'm joined by two very friendly, wonderful, and amazing client partners and friends. So let's start out with Scott Foster.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Scott Foster. I'm the Director of Executive and Provider Recruitment at Phoenix Children's.
There's Bruce.
Look who it is. It's Bruce.
Yay. Thank
you.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be wanted.
Excellent. Megan, introduction.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So excited to be on this call with all of you. My name is Megan DePecco, and I am a Vice President of Human Resources at Better Health Group based here in Tampa, Florida.
And Bruce.
Hello and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Bruce Mattis, System Director of Talent Acquisition for Phoebe Putney Health System in Albany, Georgia. Megan is probably starting to dry off from what's about to hit our world in about 5-6 hours.
Thank you guys for making the time this afternoon, and everyone who's joining us on the line. We appreciate your presence and your engagement. We're super excited to dive into this. We definitely want to just start with some statistics, what we do know today and what we're anticipating for the future. So as we think about the demand for healthcare workers, this is largely due to many things. An aging population and less individuals coming into the workforce are all impacting a lot of these shortages for not only the physicians and surgeons and the advanced practice nurses, but also all the support staff for nurses, med tech, and lab techs. It's definitely going to be a tough road ahead for the next 15 to 20 years. To that end, we'd like to just start a little bit of asking the question, what is the greatest challenge? Is it the demand? Is it the supply? And what is your organization facing today? And I'd like to just start with, we'll go top down, bottom up. So Bruce, can you share with us a little bit about what your greatest recruitment challenge is? Is it due to that supply and demand? And if so, how are you managing those impacts for you and Phoebe Putney?
Yeah, I think right now, the greatest challenge that I'm faced with is viable, experienced talent interested in my part of the United States. I would be curious to see supply and demand related to nurses. If we converted every single travel nurse in the United States and placed them in a hospital, I think a lot of our positions would get filled. But I think that there is a gap that's still there. But when it comes to here at Phoebe and what some of my other brothers and sisters out there in the healthcare world are dealing with, it's just viable, experienced talent to come in and hit the ground running. So many of us, how we have to turn that around is we have to home grow. We have to grow our own, developing robust training programs, residency programs, working with local universities and schools to see if they could help put in things that we can, for imaging, for laboratory, for respiratory, not just traditional nursing. So
Sure.
it's not finding the talent, it's getting the talent to come here.
Rural Georgia, any rural areas. And I think that's a really good point. Some of the greatest challenges, to your point, is location, right? Once there, all things knowing, Phoebe Hutney supports a generous culture and benefits program. It's just finding those that talent to come to your location. Okay, Scott, what about yourself? What are you seeing as your greatest recruitment challenge at Phoenix Children's?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, honestly, I think it's a mix of basically three things: supply, demand, and also what we face regarding the difference between pediatrics versus adult medicine. And so, Phoenix Children's, we just opened hospital number 2 this year, and we open hospital number 3 next year. And once we do, we'll become the 5th largest pediatric system in the United States. So businesses are booming is the best way I can explain it, trying to keep up with the demand of individuals that are moving to the state of Arizona. And a lot of people think that it's only retirees that come to hang out in Scottsdale. Well, that's not the case. We're seeing families that are gravitating towards the Southwest and primarily the Phoenix metro area. And we are the 5th largest MSA in the entire United States. A lot of people don't know that. And so there's a lot of demand just based on population boom, but then also supply. Right now, supply in pediatrics for pediatric providers is actually down by 30%. And so a lot of individuals that are selecting pediatrics is on the decline. And I think the other piece is just compensation, is that adult medicine does see higher compensation than pediatrics. And so an individual that's coming out with, several $100,000 potentially in student loans because of choosing a career in healthcare, especially for a physician or a nurse practitioner or a PA, do see, lower compensation. And so, I think we have all of those things combined, is kind of the situation that we're in. But I would say one last thing too is we're the best kept secret in the Southwest. A lot of people don't know about who Phoenix Children's is, what all we do for our patients, our academic affiliations, the research that we do that is very cutting edge, that's really kind of putting us even more so on the map on the national and the global stage.
Excellent. And Megan.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So I think mine is going to be fairly similar to Bruce and Scott. So, we're certainly faced with those challenges with the demand, right? And obviously there's several factors that play into that: the aging workforce, more retirement, and then also on the primary care side, fewer medical graduates are choosing primary care as their specialty. And being that we're also a value-based care model, finding healthcare professionals who can essentially balance that clinical and that administrative tasks effectively is sort of a challenge in the job market as well. What we do to really try to address this on our end is we have to focus on our value proposition, right, and our employment branding. Given our size and our competition in the market, we are competing against some of those larger healthcare systems. So bringing that value add forward of, hey, you're going to be able to spend more time with your patients. You're going to see less patients a day. You'll really get to know your patients and be a part of like their overall improving their quality of care. So we just spend a lot of time on that value proposition to address the demand piece, as well as the needs that we need from them in terms of their clinical expertise, as well as, that Medicare Advantage aspect of understanding that part of the business.
That's great. And interesting, a lot of, there's some similarities. It could be location, which is an internal struggle, but your work, you emphasizing the culture that you do at Phoebe, Phoenix Children's, your growth, like there's an opportunity. So a lot of the messaging, I think sometimes the pieces of which what your challenge can become what your strength is and how you're responding. So I love that it's a variety amongst the group here, even once interviewed, and they find the beauty of Albany, Georgia, and all that it offers, being a part of the growth, you're really making sure that this is the right fit for them. So while the challenge is unique, the way you guys are really facing that is very positively. Oftentimes we hear, and this, for the sake of the participants on the call too, there's typically the what is your greatest need? Is it volume? Is it quality? Is it a little bit of both? Is it something else? How do you guys find that balance for volume and quality? And I'll start with you, Meg, and then it just goes back down to Scott and Bruce on how you're finding that balance for talent attraction.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I think like many of our approaches at Better Health Group, we like to approach it in a very simple way. Like the more simple, I think the easier sometimes it can be for execution. So first and foremost, like our hiring standards are incredibly defined. We've established like that very clear set of criteria of what makes an ideal candidate, like in terms of skills, experience, cultural fit. And this ensures that when we're like under that pressure to hire very quickly, we don't lose sight of what is most important in the candidates. And then our interview and pre-hire assessment process is also incredibly defined. We've implemented structural behavioral-based interview questions to maintain that consistency. And then we also use standardized behavioral assessments to help us ensure that every candidate we consider meets that necessary soft skill requirement. We also have items such as like, we have a talent network. We're always building a pipeline. We've been in the process of building out a CRM recently. I'm also a data person inside and out. So we like to track and analyze metrics like time to fill, turnover rates, quality of hire. And 90-day turnover in particular is a really solid data point to help us understand like if our approach with this balance of quality versus quantity is working, based off of some of those retention and turnover data points. And the trick here is that we just don't deviate from any of these items. Like all of these roles and expectations are clearly set and defined. And interestingly enough, pulling in this structure actually saves us time throughout the process to stay very consistent with this.
Great. That's great. Anything to add, Scott? Bruce?
I would just say I would ditto everything that Megan said and, just call it a day just for the sake of everyone else. But, I think just one piece that I always come back to here is regardless of whether it's a nurse or a physician or a division chief or member of leadership, come back always, and what we focused on is coming back to solid recruitment principles, the value of the intake, truly understanding what it is that we're looking for in the role that we're trying to find. I would rather spend more time and have my team spend more time really truly seeking to understand everything about the role. Go shadow, understand what that new employee or that new member to our organization is going to be doing on any given day. We used to call it the realistic job preview, and so I don't know if anybody else remembers those words. Maybe I'm dating myself. You can tell by the lack of hair on the top of my head, but there we go, Bruce. But I think getting back to those principles allows us to communicate to candidates exactly what it is that we're looking for, so they understand what they're going to be selecting when they come to us. And then also, just like Megan said, we have invested heavily in leadership assessments because we see providers, whether it's an APP or a physician, as leaders within our organization. And so we've brought in a number of individuals that we know clearly could do the job. But quite honestly, if they don't fit our culture and our leadership style within the organization, we may say no. And that's kind of how we balance out. And that's why we're able to keep a lot of our physician as well as APP turnover, well below national averages.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what I hear. And thank you, Scott. It all starts with the intake and having your team learn and, the behavioral assessments, the interview guides, and Megan, your piece on data tells your story. You got to know where your quick quits are. You've got to get in there and assess that. Most important statistic for my team here at Phoebe is the time from the apply to interview, because my team can affect that with the leader putting blocks on calendars and doing those things. And one thing is, are we interviewing for fit? Are we interviewing for competency? And the other thing, don't forget the importance of diversity questions, because DEI, it's not a delusion, but there's some components. You want to interview for inclusivity, you want to interview for belonging, and having questions about that. And I'd say one thing that many organizations forget to do, they put all these pieces in place that Scott and Megan did, which we need. I think all three of us are doing many of the same things, but then they forget to train supervisors and managers on how to properly interview. That interview guide gets thrown out the door, and then they go rogue on you and start asking their own questions. And that's where we tend to get in trouble. And then they fall in love with the person because they ask their question, tell me about your three strengths and a weakness. And they didn't even listen to the person's performance. And, you know, past behavior is that predictor. And I love to see that we take people through that process and they understand, because Megan's going to share with them the data. Hey, you just had 3 people quit within the first 6 months. There's something there. And if you're losing a doctor within 90 days, you didn't interview them right for the most part. You didn't give them a good acculturation of your community. You didn't onboard them right. And so there's some things that we really can affect. So the balance, volume days are done in healthcare. It's really tackling how strong your process is to bring in as best of a right fit as possible for you.
Nice. That's great. Such great sound bites. I think people are nodding their heads. I'm telling you, gone are the days of volume. That's great. All right.
I would just like to get, take Scott, Megan, and myself, and we could start our own hospital. We'll fill all the positions and it'll be taken care of great, because the two of them are absolutely fantastic. Because Jenny, one thing I want people to take away, look at how sincere Scott and Megan are and how passionate they are about what they're discussing. And we just need to take that up to leadership and get leadership buy-in when we're rolling these programs out, because that lies in passion, and our recruiters need to have that passion.
100%. No, that's great. Irrelevant of the slide you see in front of you, you're bringing up something very critical, which isn't a planned or canned question. And so to go off script, I mean, we're in healthcare for a reason. We're recruitment and HR talent for a reason. Our purpose is that. And so to echo what you're saying, Bruce, is the passion becomes your purpose. And so it is reflective of the leaders here today, and even those who've agreed to join us to want to learn more and enhance your skill set as a recruiter, impacting that. So it comes down to that too, the passion and your purpose. Tactically speaking or not, I think a lot of the things that I've heard when connecting with you guys in preparation for this are some of the things you've done to improve the candidate experience. And I recall some conversations we've had recently, which is really from that first impression. So I'm going to go to you, Bruce, again, largely because making it about the community, meeting them, incorporating the family as part of the interview process. Can you speak a little bit about how the candidate experience became sometimes the family or the culture of your organization, and how you've made that from that first impression?
Absolutely. I think when we're talking about candidate experience, is we really have to take on all of us have the same value of empathy. We have to put in the eyes of the candidate and what they're going through, trying to see things from their perspective. One of my takeaways from the military was leave no team member behind. Well, leave no candidate behind. Make your touch points. Use your applicant tracking system to connect with every candidate, and give them a very respectful thank you, but no thank you email if you're moving on. Do it timely. Make it not about the big, great black hole. Personalize your messaging to people. And I like data, but remember, if you're going to send people things, this is the device they're going to look at it from. So make sure if you're doing PDFs, it's scalable. Make sure the information that you're going to send to somebody, because they're going to look at it. But at the end of the day, candidates, they don't want to look at your email. They're already going to research your website. They're going to go to Glassdoor. So making sure your messaging is clear on all of those platforms. You're using all of your approved marketing and media components, but your messaging has to be clear. And people frown away from the word family, but in rural Georgia, And in the clinic basis, and all the clinics that Megan's got, and then Scott with Children's Hospital, it is a family. It really is a family, and you've got to make the candidate feel like they're a part of that journey. So the welcome is the very important piece, and you treat it with kid gloves, and you really should roll out the red carpet. Make sure that your leaders are on time for interviews. Make sure that they greet people with kindness and sincerity and eye contact. And remember, not everybody has a perfect cell phone or a perfect device when they're doing a Zoom or video call. So be compassionate about that as well.
I love that. Nice. Megan, how about yourself?
There we go. Sorry about that, Jen. Yeah, I mean, I echo Bruce, right? It's all about that initial contact and, making that candidate feel incredibly special and important throughout the interview process. Something that we did on our end to hold our business accountable, because we know on the recruiting team everything that we need to do. I think sometimes the hard part is also ensuring that those other individuals that are part of the process are consistent and following through on all of these experiences that we want to make sure our candidates experience throughout the process. So something interesting that we did on our end was, I mean, while we got a new ATS and we, limited the number of steps that they have to complete, which is always nice. And we incorporated like an automatic scheduling tool, which, by the way, everybody loves, including our providers. So I definitely want to make sure everyone knows that they've been going in and scheduling their own times too, and it's been working really well. But we built in some customer satisfaction or candidate satisfaction surveys, I should say, into the process. And this really drives with accountability. And we not only ask our candidates like what their experience was like with the recruiter, but we also ask the candidate what their experience was like with the hiring team and with all the individuals that they encountered throughout that process, especially when they had like their site visits or when they met directly with one of our medical directors, or maybe when they had that lunch with the regional manager. And we actually evaluate those individuals who participate, and they are, basically held accountable to that in their performance expectations. And, interestingly enough, it's not that they weren't doing it before, but, even adding that like extra layer of accountability that this is a part of your role and we're going to hold you accountable to following through with this has actually made quite a big difference. And Bruce, had you mentioned like showing up to interviews on time? Because I mean, think about it. If you know that you're going to be asked, if someone's going to ask that question about you and you're going to be held accountable to it, you're going to be more likely to kind of follow through on that. So that was something, especially with the provider experience, it's just so important that we held everybody accountable to, what their roles were. And I would even say, Jen, that we even carry this through beyond the hiring process, like that handoff, if you will, from hiring to onboarding is also so incredibly important, and not to lose sight of it, because as recruiters, we spend so much time cultivating this wonderful relationship, and then we kind of have to hand off our baby to someone else, and we want them to make sure that they take the same care. So we even rolled in that same layer of accountability to everybody who is a part of like that onboarding process, so that it doesn't stop on day one.
That's excellent. Yeah, you both spoke to, or all of you really, about how the importance of ensuring that you're being mindful of their device and compassionate. And then I love the fact that we are considering improving candidate experience technology. You're going to have a lot of different partners to support you with the ease of scheduling, because that improves time. And time is crucial for all of us, in particular candidates, because the likelihood that you're entertaining or attracting talent that already has a job, pretty high. So you're really going to have to stand above where they are. And I thought that was really great. So kind of leveraging both the human touch and technology when appropriate, and then tracking that. You're saying a lot of you've seen high engagement, they're happy with that. So it sounds like that was the right move and an effective step. It's a nice segue, because when you mentioned about the handoff, as you track and review ways in which your candidates are pathing through your organization, if you're seeing high turnover in a short time, like where can you impact that? And we all know there's turnover, right? And the way in which we respond to that is different and served by certain disciplines and modalities. But interestingly enough, I'd love to know, what have you done to re-engage and re-recruit employees? And that doesn't mean that they've left you. It means that some in cases it has, and I know some of you guys have an active boomerang campaign, we'll call it, to re-engage previous employees. But once that handoff has occurred, are there mentorship programs? Are there certain steps that you incorporated into your re-recruiting phase to ensure that good talent doesn't leave your organization? And I'll kind of open it up to anybody who'd like to speak.
Jen, I can hop off with
Sure.
this one. Something new that we've really instituted this year, which I don't know, kind of hits a really good soft spot for me. We have about 140, I think it's 143 residents and fellows that are on campus with us every single day. And we're always building from that space. And not everybody stays with Phoenix Children's, although national average is 57% of everyone that goes through residency through fellowship typically stays within that system. Where they went through residency and fellowship. So it's pretty interesting. One of the things that we have done is really, like, when we go to these conferences, putting out an invite for all alumni. I love the concept of alumni and getting people back together, letting them know what's going on at Phoenix Children's since they were there. And kind of building on that memorable time that they had with us, because we may have been the foundation for where their career and their ability to take care of others got kicked off. So I'm always staying in touch with alumni. So that's where leveraging CRM technology is really big, letting people know. I mean, we just let people know we opened a brand new hospital. We're opening another hospital, next year. So letting people know what that looks like. Hey, we finished the bathrooms, in hospital number 3. It's any chance you can get to re-engage those folks and the alumni network. But for us also, like our GME program, they have a DE&I committee. They have a recruitment committee. We're going to conferences together. We're involving them in the entire DE&I provider recruitment strategies. So it's rather than going to a conference where it's just recruiters, invite physicians, invite your division chiefs, leadership, to attend with you. And for us, it's a great way to bring people into what's current, but also how do we bring people back to, kind of where it all started from. So that's something that we've been doing lately. And I have AAP, which is our largest conference, American Academy of Pediatrics. It's in Orlando. So everybody say a prayer. We have a successful conference. But I mean, there's 20,000 people that are at this conference, and so many people have a tie back to Phoenix Children's. And so we're trying to get them all together for a breakfast, so something like that, just to tell them. So kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's very unique. So you notice that that's going to happen. You have high engagement. You're taking advantage of a very unique event specifically to your industry, that you can have the likelihood that you'll have a good network alumni turnout. And I'm sure you'll capitalize with images and postings and follow it through. So that's great. Megan or Bruce, any additional steps or unique ideas and programs that you've instituted to re-recruit employees?
Well, I think Scott summed it up about keeping people updated on the news. If someone left here 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in my world, they may not know what's happening here. And so talking about our Living and Learning Center, the first of its kind partnership, talking about where we're almost done with a new tower that's equipped to hit level 2 trauma and a new NICU, all of those things. But the other thing is we've grown, we've listened. If there were mistakes in the past, your messaging, it may want to address it. Hey, we listened, we screwed up, we shouldn't have sunset the pension plan, but here's what we're doing on the 403B. I think people want you to be vulnerable, but they also want to hear good news. And I think what's effective is it all comes back to your messaging. We miss you. We'd love for you to come back. And I think things like that resonate with people. And they left for whatever reason, but some people will want to come back. You're not going to get everybody, but I think the efforts, it has to be sincere. And that's the thing that's going to help us get people to come back, because they lived here for a reason. They lived in Phoenix, Scottsdale for a reason. They lived in Tampa, in your numerous other spots, Megan, they will come back to you if you're sincere and you took good care of them. Some people might not make a move.
Yeah, that's true. Megan, anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is like with the idea of like re-recruiting, I also sort of think about that like internal team members or internal employees. You know, what can we do to retain them? So just another way to spin this is to think about, you know, looking at like items like engagement surveys or exit surveys to see why people are leaving. Right. Yep. And the whole idea would be then to, you know, put strategies and actions into place to try to solve some of the reasons why they would leave. You know, for instance, if you recognize through engagement surveys that there's a number one reason why people leave would be communication. Well, then let's try to address that here internally. Absolutely. So that they don't want to leave. Right. So it's just another way to spin it is always think about how you can leverage data, whether it's through engagement surveys or through, you know, exit surveys to see what you can do to solve before they even leave.
Absolutely. And I mean, to that end, I'll just springboard a bit further to suggest that as you are looking at the data, certain groups, you know, maybe therapy or pharmacy or nurse assistants, there may be higher engagement at certain points. So just trying to protect that time and space to listen as to why, and leveraging surveys and having exit surveys and just having the opportunity to learn. Maybe some left due to a particular initiative or leader or location. And so if you can readdress that and say, we know that this was a concern and we've resolved that, would you consider? That is a great way to re-recruit. But I like it's retain. You know, if you can stay ahead of it and have, you know, meaningful conversations with expectations, I think that goes even further. Perfect. So we have, I know we still have a few more questions to get through. So let's go on to the next, which is really what strategy has had the most positive impact. We've talked about re-recruitment, listening, that white glove for new employees, any additional positive impact. And these hiring initiatives could be one where you've partnered with an organization locally, or you've had a great event with your leadership. Really just thinking through like what was a really positive impact in 2024 on hiring initiatives that you'd like to share with the group today. Bruce, you're off of mute, so I'm going to go right to you.
I was going to say, you know, Scott's better looking than me, and Megan's the lady on the team. But okay.
Oh goodness, here she goes. All right.
So one of the things that is a recent success is we had a severe nursing shortage, and we were probably a little over 40% of our nurses were travelers. And it folds in today, but we decided we looked at our nursing salary, and I think you've got to come back with competitive wages. You got to come back with competitive benefits. Now, if you've got something to work with there, because people aren't going to come to you for a signing bonus. I mean, if they are, then they're going to leave when that sign-on bonus term is over. But being able to work with those two things, and I'm going to say working closely with all of our leadership team, looking at what the fiscal impact is going to be. Now we put together a campaign to hire 100 nurses in 100 days and putting the information out there, but getting senior leadership's buy-in at the top that we can't do it unless we're offering something beyond just a great workplace, beyond some of the wonderful technology and process things that we do so well in our culture. No. So I think getting everyone involved at the top about compensation and benefits and making some changes there. And it started us on a path because now we're doing adjustments in other areas. And I'm not saying we were trailing in benefits, but the word has gotten out now in our entire region. Phoebe is very aggressive with their salaries. And so maybe it's forcing some of our competition to do some things differently there. But for me, it helped the story. I could talk about new grad programs. I could talk about going to events. Relationship is the number one thing that's going to help you with it. But at the end of the day, getting buy-in from the top, being able to look at where our disparities were and what what was preventing us from hiring people, and then taking that campaign out into the community. It brought people back, and we got 106 in 100 days.
That's incredible. So you said something interesting there about leadership buy-in. So you took the data, you got the leadership buy-in, so that way everything from top down all embrace this initiative. So that's great to hear. Anything additional? Well, I'm gonna check the chat while you guys, Megan or Scott, would you like to add something?
Megan, you're up. Megan, you're on the clock.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, the one thing that I would add is, and maybe this will be surprising to hear or not, but I mean, what truly has made the biggest impact, at least for our team in the past, I would say maybe 12 to 18 months is, it hasn't been like a new technology. It hasn't been an artificial intelligence or anything like that. I would just say it's truly just about driving accountability, right? Because we all know what we need, and we know what recruiting strategies work. And anybody that's been in this business for a long time, it's like, you need to have your solid employee value proposition. You need to drive referrals. You need to streamline your process. You need to be transparent. You need to be fast. You need to be competitive, like all of those things, right?
Yeah.
But how do you make sure that you pull all of that through? There's just a lot of stuff that you have to make sure that happens throughout the process. And I mentioned employee value proposition a few times, and mission and values, because here at Better Health Group, that's really what sells us and sets us apart from other roles and opportunities that are out there. So if I know how important it is that is like the number one thing that a recruiter does when they're on the phone with somebody, is they make that connection with the candidate, or that our hiring managers make that connection with the candidate. They're selling our employee value proposition. They're really driving home our mission and values. It's one thing to tell them to do it. It's another thing to then turn around and record their interviews and go back and watch their interviews to see how they're doing it. And it isn't necessarily to a like you're not performing well, but it's like, okay, well, maybe there's some opportunity here. And then it's a matter of sort of like retraining and maybe helping them improve their skills in that area, especially since we know we need to focus very heavily on something like that as far as like our interview process is concerned. So it's truly just around what can we do in our process to ensure that pull through. And a lot of it has just been through driving through accountability throughout the process for everybody that's involved.
I love that. Scott, I was looking at the chat. It was you. You're talking about state interviews. Now, a state interview can also be a retention interview. Same thing, right? Tell me a little bit about how that has helped you.
Well, I mean, that was actually for the last question when we were all talking about it. Is just but I mean, no, you're good. I mean, the part that I would say just in relation to that is a lot of organizations I see do focus a lot on the exit interview. And, I think if there's a robust, hardwired process to always check in with employees, regardless of what title they are, like, how are things going? Not just about your performance review or anything along those lines, but really about I mean, I've got a wonderful leader where every other month she spends 30 minutes with me just asking me about my career. I mean, like, what development do you need? What could you, if there was one thing that I could do for you, what would it be? Imagine what that would look like for our employees. And I promise you that, we're going to hear the compensation pieces that come out typically from everyone, but I'd be willing to bet that we would have just a whole smattering of other probably low-hanging fruit that we could do to make the lives and the work that our employees do that much better on any given day. For me, oftentimes it's just being able to say to her back is, us just sitting down and having a conversation for 30 minutes that isn't work related, that isn't, just going and having a cup of coffee and us being unique individuals of worth is huge. Imagine what that would look like if we were able to make that, to carve that out for people. And so I think it's the focus on the unique person, which allows me to bridge into this question is, for me, I've come back to my roots as a physician and an actual recruiter. I have looked my team in the face and have said, if you have an opportunity to pick that candidate up at the airport versus, hiring a driver to go do it, then go do it. We're in the business of taking care of people, So, I mean, seeing them as a unique individual of worth, I promise you that will actually probably lower the amount of people that you have to bring in, and utilize the Ritz-Carlton principle. Create memorable moments for people. And I don't know about if, you all remember, but when we did this in person at PMRC, I still have that thought inside my head about that one attendee that was talking about bringing the two kids together for a play date.
Yes.
I mean, that was huge. I
Yeah.
promise you that whether that provider signs or not, they will always remember that
that
person,
moment.
that
Yeah.
system, that will always be tucked away in the back of their mind. And so, focusing on the person and creating, regardless, a memorable moment, and making it safe for
Yeah.
our recruitment teams to create memorable moments.
Sure.
Not so on speed and all of these other things. It's
Right.
if we put the focus on memorable moments,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that does, for all the rest of us. And that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah, and I'm jotting these down because I'm taking advantage of your 30-minute moment on a monthly basis with your leader. That is something I'd love to implement for our organization. I think having these types of initiatives to make memorable moments and to just have meaningful conversations with current team, it also helps leaders really build those productive one-on-one relationships, right? I mean, beyond the work, just having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and learning about that. So thanks for sharing. These are great examples. And let me just kind of move my talking heads for a moment. This is our last question. And it really is one that really wraps us up nicely, which is, what strategy in general is on your agenda to implement next year? I'm sure you're all thinking about that, about 25, 26. What strategy are you adding to implement to impact your organization next year? So, Scott, you're unmuted. So you start and we'll roll back down. Megan, you'll be next.
You got it. I mean, for us in pediatrics, we are absolutely focusing on APP growth. And so that is a major strategy for us about building out an even more robust strategy around APP attainment. And so we know that that's how we're going to combat, if you will, the decline in physicians that are choosing pediatrics. But there are a lot of pediatric RNs that are becoming NPs and, that have specialty experience. So how do we really create a destination employer mindset for a nurse moving into an NP status? And so that's really what we're looking at building out for next year.
I love that. Megan?
Yeah, so I think I can narrow it down into two very simple terms. Like, it's all about creativity and technology. I really do want to expand our use of data-driven recruiting tools. I do think AI-powered tools can play a part of that, and that's certainly something that we are exploring going into next year. We're also going to double down on our behavioral assessments. We've been very diligent in using those for the past 12 to 18 months. Now I want to expand on that, though. So now that we have all this data on our individuals, let's take it beyond our hiring criteria and then look at post-hire, how well they perform, how well does their clinics perform, and then that will really help us with our candidate profile, right? That job profile for the type of person that we're looking for. So that's going to be a big part of it. And then last, I would say, just more emphasis on our employment branding. We do want to spend some additional time in that space just to keep ourselves competitive with where we're trying to go next year.
That's great. That's a lot, but these are all so critical. And Bruce, let's round it out.
So mine's the year of the pipeline. Downstream effect. Physician recruitment is not something one month down the line. You're planting seeds 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 months, as it is with nursing as well. So we're looking at leveraging technologies that we have in place, partners that we're using, about building those relationships with people that aren't ready to come to us today, staying in touch with them, keeping the story going. And Scott, you hit it on the head. It's the connectivity with that person and seeing them as a real person, like getting those two kids to play together to ease that person's angst that I'm here for an interview, but I do have my kid with me. And I think the pipeline is what's going to drive us to having our positions and getting our vacancies taken care of a year to two down the line. We had a landmark year with physician recruitment this past year. And our goal is to continue that in other areas and keep it going. But it's got to be the year of the pipeline and really getting out in front of the right candidates. Because it's not about volume. It's about making clear connections with people.
Right. Those are great. Thank you guys so much. The last slide was really just a gracious thanks for all of those who joined. I just want to make sure that we have opportunity to answer any questions. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. There's a couple in the chat that came directly to me, and one was just, if you could change one thing about your current recruitment or retention strategy, what would it be and why? And one person can take that if you have a good idea. We all have nice programs that have been voluntold. So yeah, Scott, I see you ready.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is just, putting more focus on allowing the freedom for recruiters to create those wow moments, and that is, I mean, I want to try and find a way to measure it, and so, I mean, I've got some ideas in mind, but for me, like, I want to figure that one out.
Okay, that's great. Perfect. Anyone else want to add to that? If not, I understand. All right, we're close to the hour. We'll have a recording of this. We want to thank our speakers once again for just being here and sharing not only an hour of their time, but just their feedback and insights. It's always great to see you guys once again. And for those of you in the path, stay safe, stay dry, and just wish you the best. So thanks again. Take care. And I appreciate you guys joining us today. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.